I'm Hara Allison, and this is Dream Anyway, a podcast for those of us who feel the pull to create, even when the path isn't clear. So wherever you are in your journey, grab a coffee, get comfy, and dream anyway.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katy Purviance. I am the founder of the Spokane Learning Co-op. We are Eastern Washington's only self-directed education center, and we're Washington State's only outdoor self-directed education center. A good way to think about self-directed education is to compare it with a conventional school setting, what we might call public school, private school, traditional school, regular school, like all those terms that are used for what most of us went through as children. In that environment, that is other directed education. Somebody else decides what classes you take, what order you take them in, what you learn in each class or what you are taught in each class, who your teacher is, what the curriculum is, what the lessons are, what the projects are, what the exams are, what the homework is, how things are graded, and all of that. That's all decided by somebody who is not you. So that's other directed education. Self-directed education means you decide those things. Self-directed education is kind of an umbrella term. There's different ways of doing it. If you're just doing it within your own family, you just might simply call it unschooling.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with that term?
Instead of homeschooling?
Well, okay. So again, homeschooling can be an umbrella term,
okay.
and unschooling is a way to do homeschooling.
Oh, okay.
Some families, when they homeschool, they will seek to replicate school at home. And then others will use a particular curriculum that's intended for homeschoolers. And then some are unschoolers where they're literally just living their lives.
Oh, well, that's cool. Is that legal?
Yes, it's legal in all 50 states.
Oh,
yes.
it is?
Yeah.
Well, damn it. Where was that when I was little?
It wasn't always legal in all 50 states.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So under the self-directed education umbrella, there's different ways of doing it in community. So if you go to a self-directed education school, you are doing unschooling in community. One of our biggest inspirations is the Summerhill School in the UK, which was founded in 1924 and is still going strong. All these years later, their motto is 100 years old and still ahead of our time. So in schools like this, there's no required classes. That's the major difference. There's no required classes. Kids are literally free to play all day long if they wish to. In many of these schools, there are classes, but they're optional.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of your listeners are teachers, but if you can imagine what your life would be like as a teacher, if only the children who wanted to be there were there, that would change everything.
So when kids have the opportunity, do they choose learning?
Let's unpack that question. They are always learning. Whether they're in class or out of class, they're always learning.
I see.
There are some people who say they learn more outside of class than they do in an environment, when it's being shoved down their throats, when they're just like shutting down and going into coping mode. But to put the question in a different way, whether or not children choose to go to class, yes, they do. When it's something that interests them, they do. To go back to Summerhill, what they've discovered that if nobody shows up to class 3 times, then they're like, okay, something's wrong with this teacher to not be interesting enough for kids.
Wow. I love the idea that it could be the teacher because I had some terrible ones.
You and everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. In college, I remember this monotone teacher who would read to us from the book. I'm like, man, I'm in college and I can read the book.
You're like, what am I paying for?
Oh, it was awful. It was the worst class ever.
Yeah.
It was hard to stay awake. Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. My sister homeschooled her kids, and I think I was just jealous because, they'd go off and do fun things and call it school.
That's right. Yeah. And more families are doing that. One opportunity in the homeschooling umbrella that's very exciting is worldschooling. And these are parents, sometimes a single income parent who they found a way to work online. They're location independent. And so they can just travel the world with their kids. I myself am a nomad. I myself am an English as a second language teacher. I've spent most of my career abroad in other countries. And I can say without a doubt that travel is the best education.
Definitely.
To immerse yourself in a totally different culture, being under a different government and economic system, different food, different languages, different ways of seeing the world. That's education.
I agree 100%. I mean, you don't know anything unless you've traveled because it's so narrow, you're focused.
Oh, absolutely. And you start to see your own country in a different way. That's what's so liberating. For me, every time I move to another country, after being here, it takes about 3 or 4 months, and I can start to feel my own enculturation fall away. And I can see what's me and what was put on me by my culture.
Oh, like what?
Oh my gosh. Let me think. Well, the last country I lived in Albania for a year. And before that, I lived in China for 3 years.
Oh, cool.
And I remember feeling it very strongly in China. Their culture is so different from ours.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a series of events, right? Like something happens that's very different that would not happen here. And then something else happens that's very different that would not happen here. It accumulates. And then you realize you're now fitting into your new culture better than you are your old culture.
What does your organization do for self-directed education?
So the Spokane Learning Co-op right now, we're operating as a homeschool co-op. It's our goal to become a full-time K through 12 alternative program for kids. And that's a process that requires state approval. It's a long process. So we're not there yet. We're in the beginning stages. So what that looks like for us right now is all of our families are homeschool families, and they will come to us once a week or twice a week. I have to back up a little bit. So we're all outdoors. We're off grid. We're all weather. We're year round. We don't stop for the summer. We don't take breaks, but most kids come just once a week, 3 hours at a time. We don't really have anything like a class or a lesson or today we're going to do X activity. We have an environment, right? We're on 10 acres in North Spokane. We have a library. We have a little arts and crafts studio. We cook with the kids outside. We have a 9-foot tall straw bale pyramid. We have large scale building materials. Kids will build their own houses and forts and villages. The mud hole is very, very popular with kids of all ages. Our mud hole started off as one little lake and then another little lake and then a tunnel to connect them. And then it got bigger. And then there were islands in the lake and then bridges between the islands. Like you could say we learned fluid dynamics, right? We learned oceanography, just seeing how water moves in different ways through different shapes, right? It's very hands-on.
Yeah.
You get an understanding of the principles of nature because you are participating with it. And that's a very different experience than somebody who goes to a lecture, watches a PowerPoint, completes a worksheet, and then does a multiple choice test on it. We have a very visceral bodily experience.
Yeah.
And then another thing that really sets us apart, which is similar to other self-directed education schools, but a little bit different, is we practice sociocracy. And that's a word not a lot of people are familiar with. It's kind of like democracy, which is what we say we have, where we vote yes or no if we want something. And I thought that in the beginning, I thought that we were going to be a democracy. Mm-hmm. But when I reached out to my network to say like, hey, who wants to move to Spokane and help me start this thing? A few people reached out to me saying like, oh, there's problems with democracy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said the problem with democracy is that up to 49% of the people could be upset with a decision and will undermine and sabotage it. And these people individually, like independently of each other, recommended I look into sociocracy instead. So I did. And there are some alternative schools in the Netherlands called circle schools who practice sociocracy. And it starts off the same way. Any kid can propose a new rule. The kids create their own rules. And if a kid sees a reason why we should have a new rule or change an existing rule, they can bring it to the group. And here's where we have the divide. In a democracy, we would just vote on it, and then we would know once and for all whether or not we were making this change. In a sociocratic environment, we have a talking piece. Everyone gets to speak and say how they feel and what they think about this, and if they object to it, and what else they would suggest instead. So it's a conversation.
So good.
After we've heard everybody, I will make a proposal based on what I've heard that I feel meets everybody's needs. And then people will say, yes, this works, or no, I hate this. I need to change it. We just, take the temperature for where people are at, and it just continues to be a conversation. And the idea is we're not trying to find the most perfect solution ever. We're trying to take one step closer to something that everybody feels okay with trying. The idea is good enough for now, safe enough to try, with the understanding that if it's not working, we can revisit it and keep working on it.
Yeah.
So that is what we do with the children. And we've had kids as young as 4 be able to actively participate in advocating for themselves and advocating for their peers, in trying to come up with rules that just work for everybody. We try to empower them. We don't want a situation where they feel like their only recourse is to tattle or to get upset. We want to give them the power to make real change so that they can all get along and have a good time.
What a thing to just be heard.
Right.
Well, how beautiful. I just so appreciate that you're doing that with young people who then have a voice.
It's getting them accustomed to having a voice so that when they get older, if anyone tries to silence them, that feels wrong to them. And then they'll take steps to correct that.
That's really beautiful. Were you homeschooled?
No, I myself was not homeschooled.
Do you have children who you are?
No. So I've been a teacher since 2013. So all of my inspiration and drive to do this comes from being heartbroken in the public school system as a teacher, seeing how the system hurts children. And this is across all levels. I've worked in everything from pre-K, elementary school, middle school, high school, university. I've taught at all levels. I've taught in 5 countries around the world, including here in Spokane. If you send your kids to a system where they are required to do things, that necessitates a punishment system. Right. And some people call it a reward system. A reward system is a punishment system. You are forcing the people who work there to engage in activities that you might disagree with. And all of this is to compel kids to go through this gauntlet of somebody else's curriculum. And schools are kind of required to do this because they're getting funding and the people who are funding them are requiring that they check these boxes. I believe it is possible to bring a self-directed education model into the public school system. It's something I've been talking with teachers who are still in the system, who believe in the system, who have good hearts, who have good reasons for being there. I think at the end of the day, it's a failure of imagination to think that we can't do better for our kids within the system. You know, in my favorite educational documentary, they interview a professor and he says that if you want to reform education, someday you will be a footnote in somebody else's book. But if you want to revolutionize education, you can start today. And so I'm not waiting for school to change. There's so much money in big testing ever since the No Child Left Behind Act that totally transformed school into something that a lot of good-hearted teachers could no longer tolerate and left the system because of. But there's so much money and power in education that I did not want to spend my life trying to reform that. I decided instead to spend my life creating an alternative that kids can start enjoying right now. The way our school system is set up now, the idea is that kids are being taught, I don't know if they're learning it, but they're being taught all of this information with the idea that someday it might be useful. This idea that you've got to pack in everything you need to know by the age of 18 or else. And that's just simply not true. You can decide any time to turn your life around, to learn something new, to change course, to try something different. The idea that you need to learn all this stuff just in case you ever need to use it is such a waste of time. Who has ever needed to use a quadratic equation ever in their lives, right? What's beautiful about self-directed education is it's not just in case learning like school does. It's just in time learning. What are you trying to do right now? And then what are you learning on the way to meeting that goal right now? And learning isn't even the point. We're not trying to learn. We're trying to give the kids freedom to do what they want to do. And then incidentally, as a byproduct of going after their goals, they're learning. School has it completely backwards.
I've heard this before, that whatever the kids are good at, that's not where the focus is. They get all the tutors for the things they're bad at.
And think of how much better you could be at the things you are good at if you were allowed to have that time and energy and resources towards what you're good at.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate this. I love the idea of it, even though I'm jealous that I didn't get it.
We're all jealous we didn't get it. I can't tell you how many people I talk to, and men in particular, who are in their 50s and 60s, and I tell them about this, and they go a little glassy in the eyes.
Yeah. Well, I'm 57. Maybe that era, we had terrible education.
But there are so many people our age and older who are carrying around school trauma.
Yeah.
Still.
Oh, yeah.
Still.
Yeah, I do have some school trauma.
Yeah, we don't all have to love the same things, and we don't all need to do the same things. We don't all need to be good at the same things. We're better if we all get to focus on the thing that we're really good at. I think that everyone has like an inner genius, and I want each person to have the time, space, and freedom to be able to develop who they really are instead of being put into this box that just doesn't fit anybody.
The podcast is about dreaming, and you started this, and I'm just wondering, were you always supported in this dream, or are people poo-pooing your ideas? How do you feel about being supported?
That is such a great question. So like I said, I've been a teacher since 2013. I knew I wanted to do something very different in 2009, but it took me a little while before I became a teacher. In 2009, I had this experience. I was an architecture student at Harvard, first generation college, let alone grad school, let alone the Ivy League. It was a really big deal for me to get in, and I hated it. I hated it. Mm-hmm. It was 20 required credits of things I didn't care about. It was teachers I didn't get along with. It was assignments that had just nothing to do with my vision for myself as an architect. And I doubled my student loan debt in that first year. And I started to, for the first time, ask questions like, why is school like this? Mm-hmm. I think I Googled, why is school like this? And I found John Taylor Gatto. And that moment changed my life forever. He was a New York City school teacher for 30 years, New York City Teacher of the Year, New York State Teacher of the Year. He did everything he was supposed to do as a quote unquote good teacher. And he got to a certain point in his career where he realized that everything that he was doing just as part of his job as being a teacher, nothing terrible or wonderful, but just doing his basic job, he realized that he was hurting kids. And so then he asked the question, why is school like this? And that sent him on a deep dive. He went to the Boston Public Library and found the meeting minutes from the original Board of Education. He discovered the original reasons behind why our school system was set up at all, why it looks like this, why it functions like this. And so every day I read another chapter. His blog post became his magnum opus, The Underground History of American Education. But when I saw it, it was still just blog posts on his blog. So every day I'd read it. I'd post it on Facebook. It made me feel like I was really understanding things. And so it's been really interesting. I ended up leaving the program, and that summer, that same year, I read 40 books on alternative education, and I'm still down that rabbit hole. Like, it's endlessly fascinating to me. I became obsessed with how learning actually works. And so after I myself became a teacher and I started living and teaching in other countries and talking to other teachers about what learning is versus what school does, it was so interesting. Most of the teachers I talked to just had no curiosity about other ways of education, right? Or they might say, oh, you mean like Montessori? People tend to have the term Montessori as like a placeholder for anything that's not public school. And that's just simply not true. There are many other options, but most people in the conventional system just never hear of them. Most of my career has been in other countries, and then coming back to this country and trying to find out who my allies are was difficult. We have some really great people in our public school system, and many of them are still tied to this idea that there is one way to educate. And it's all about following the rules, checking the boxes, running through the approved curriculum. And even if they don't agree with it, I wish they would not agree with it more. Being complicit in a system you disagree with does not serve anybody. You get to a point where you have to ask yourself, like, how much do you believe what you believe in? And what are you willing to sacrifice for what you believe in? Mm-hmm. At what point are you no longer willing to be complicit in a system that you completely disagree with, that destroys you?
That's really an important sentence for this day and age. Do you know what you want your legacy to be?
I want to revolutionize education and nothing less.
Thanks for listening. New episodes drop every Thursday.